Winning at sports and at sports broadcasting means changing things up.
Just like La Quinta Inns and Suites is changing up their look.
A renovated lobby that's so contemporary it even makes Golic look cool.
Yes, it does. And a totally updated fitness center that even has Wingo feeling like a workout.
I'm ripped. Plus plenty of comfortable spaces to hang out.
Yep, this La Quinta look definitely has a vibe of victory.
So you can just relax, refresh, and get ready for your next big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo. Glad you're with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And speaking of the guests, we have got a loaded show.
Yes, we do.
Bradley Chubb will join us at 7:45, who could be the first defensive player off the board. A lot of people, including the Broncos' Von Miller, apparently very high on what Bradley Chubb out of North Carolina State, defensive end, may be able to do at the NFL level. Mel Kiper Jr. will join us at 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock, ESPN NFL insider and occasional NBA sideline reporter Adam Schefter will be here as well. Plus, we've got new Broncos quarterback Case Keenum coming your way, as well as P.J. Carlesimo, our fine ESPN NBA analyst. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here. We are wearing things that we would normally not wear on the show today, but it is for a very specific reason.
Yes, it is. So if you're on ESPN News, you can obviously see them. If radio, you can't. So my son Mike, you will explain why we're wearing these pretty cool T-shirts.
Yeah, so Stephanie Walsh, who works here at ESPN,
Absolutely.
who Trey, I know you know pretty well here and has been around a long time. Well, her son Silas was diagnosed last spring with T-cell leukemia and is going to be likely undergoing chemotherapy treatments until 2020. Now, you know, it's obviously a hard time for anyone, but Silas is an upbeat kid, kid who really loves superheroes, and so he decided to make the time work for him and actually started making these T-shirts. These are his own drawings of some of his favorite superheroes that you're seeing modeled by the Golic and Wingo staff here today, myself, Dad, Trey, and everyone behind the glass. And so Silas has put these up on a website that we're going to share the link to that, certainly he gets some kickback from, but just gets a chance to share the things that he loves with everyone else. And we figure we could share him around here to show that, you know, we're all big fans of his work and the stuff that he's doing right now and that we're supporting him in this battle. You know, it takes a lot of people, and I'm sure for him and his mom and their family, this has been a trying time. So there's also going to be a link, and I think we're going to share this with the Golic and Wingo Twitter account, to not only where you can get these shirts and any other of the products that he's put his superhero logos on, but also to the GoFundMe page that can help support Silas and Stephanie and their family during this time for them. So be sure to check that out. Allie's going to tweet it from the Twitter account here, but just by all accounts, sounds like an awesome kid. Tim Cronin over in IT kind of passed the word along to me that this is something that he had been doing. So wanted to show Silas that we're here to support him during the show, and we appreciate the lift on all the great gear.
Absolutely. Look, as you said, I've known Stephanie forever, and the other thing is, the shirts are awesome.
Yeah, they are awesome.
They're very cool.
And you got to remember, this is a 7-year-old doing this. Exactly. 7 years old, and making up these designs that we're putting on the shirts. And listen, what they're going to go through. You know, we everybody has been touched by this in some form or another. So we can put a smile on this young man's face, and help in any way along the way. We're certainly here to do it for one of our teammates here.
Yeah, it's incredible, and you can check out on Facebook. Silas Rocket is what he goes by on his Facebook page, and when he's selling the shirts.
How great is that name? Buddy?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
How great is that name?
Baller name, and by all accounts, and Stephanie's does a great job on the page of giving updates on Silas throughout this. And the kid just basically runs the show at the hospital where he's getting treatment. Everyone knows him. He's a big, gregarious kid, and so no surprise that he'd be the one giving us a gift during a time when he's the one battling. So be sure to check that out. Support Silas and Stephanie in any way you can, and pick up some sweet gear, man. If you want to look good, Silas got you covered.
He does. He has the artistic flair, just like his mother, I should say. No question about it. So Silas, Stephanie, we are with you. Thank you for these shirts, and we will wear them with pride. All right, let's get started.
It's time for
Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not,
it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start in the NBA playoffs. Raptors, Celtics, and Pelicans all won Tuesday to take 2-0 series leads. Teams with 2-0 leads in the best-of-7 series go on to win, let's see, 93% of the time.
A lot.
So you're off to a good start.
Yeah, and if you're the Celtics, it's even better than that. They're 35-0 when leading a best-of-7 series.
Is that good?
Yeah, 2-0. Yeah, that's pretty good with what they're doing. DeMar DeRozan, he scores 37. Big night for him. He and his best buddy Kyle Lowry have a little fun together. You can't wait to hear that one. It's pretty interesting. Milwaukee and Boston. I actually picked Milwaukee in this series.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell you, Giannis and...
I think I did, too.
I think we all did.
Yeah, I think we all did. And Chris Middleton, they've been fine. 23 of 31 between the two of them. 55 points, 30 and 25 respectively, but not enough. They're actually shooting better than Boston in the series, but Boston is turning the ball over more, getting more second chance points and points off turnovers as well with what they're doing. Terry Rozier, big game. Jaylen Brown, monster game for Boston. Interesting stuff going on with Terry Rozier and Eric Bledsoe we'll get to as well. And then I think I got this one wrong. You got the Pelicans going to Portland and taking both games there. Anthony Davis being a stud as he normally is. Drew Holiday, 33 points. He's doing it on both sides of the court. So those are that was your NBA action last night wasn't really, edgy or came down to the wire or anything like that.
No, yeah, it was pretty
just
blasé.
Enjoy the show.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah. You know what? That we have only the Celtics and the Bucks to blame because in this grouping of games, they gave us maybe the best game of the early run of the playoffs so far in Game 1. So with that as the standard, this fell well short, but we still got plenty of entertainment because the NBA's got great characters.
And not only that, but I think for all three of us that picked the Bucks over the Celtics, I think we need to say
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah,
and we'll move on. Because the Celtics have never lost a 2-0 lead.
No, they haven't.
You said.
Off the top.
We continue off the top. This is an amazing story, and it continues to be an amazing story. The Golden Knights beat the Kings 1-0 Tuesday to sweep their first ever playoff series. Vegas is the third team all-time from the NHL, NBA, or MLB to complete a 4-game sweep to win its first ever playoff series. The other two, Mike, you were there, the 1914 Braves.
I was. The Braves, they did it against the Philadelphia Athletics, and I was certainly there for when the Penguins did it in 1970 against the Oakland Seals.
There you go.
Who doesn't remember the Oakland Seals?
Well, the Oakland Seals were named because the old minor league team in the Bay Area was the San Francisco Seals. That's where Joe DiMaggio first got some attention.
Listen, can't say enough about what the Golden Knights are doing. Marc-Andre Fleury in the goal. I mean, he's just been fantastic. By the way, fewest goals scored in a sweep, best of 7 all time. So the Golden Knights are setting all kinds of records. They set the record here as well. They only scored 7 goals in this sweep, but before that it was the Mighty Ducks in 03 that scored 9 goals. So setting all kinds of records. I'm sure they'd like to not set that one anymore and score more goals than that. But what a monster series for them and a great story that continues.
We always hear the phrase, too, in sports, especially for guys in their rookie year. After a certain point in the season, you're no longer a rookie. We're getting to that point now where we have to start looking at the Golden Knights and saying, you're no longer expansion.
Right,
and now,
right,
what is the ceiling like for this team in the NHL playoffs? What is this group fully capable of? And can anyone get me a lead on some Oakland Seals gear? Yeah. I need that desperately.
That is awesome. Oakland Seals.
Give you some Oakland Seals sweaters there for sure. Now, a big reason that they've done what they've done is because of their goaltending situation.
Yep.
Look, they picked up Marc-Andre Fleury in the expansion draft. He was a big part of winning 3 Stanley Cups.
Yes, he was.
With the Pittsburgh Penguins, so that certainly helps. He now has 66 career playoff wins, and he passes Dominik Hasek, who had 65, for 11th in NHL history. So, listen, what do we say so much about the NHL playoffs? You ride that hot goaltender.
Yeah.
They have got that hot goaltender right now, a guy who's done it more than once.
Capitals get a win. There are a couple other games. They get a win over the Blue Jackets. They still are down in that series, 2 games to 1 of the Blue Jackets, and the Jets shut out the Wild 2-0. Jets up 3-1 in that series.
Off the top.
All right, we continue off the top, and ladies and gentlemen, he's human.
3-2 pitch again. And Mookie swings and he hammers one to left center field. This ball's back. This ball's gone. A home run for Mookie Betts. His 12th career leadoff home run. And the Red Sox jump on Ohtani for a 1-0 lead.
That the call on WEEI is one of 400 home runs that Mookie Betts hit in that game. As our guy, Shohei Ohtani, finally did not show out. Lasted only 2 innings, had a blister on his pitching hand, and that was a lead-off home run to start the game against the Red Sox.
So he still has hit more home runs, right?
3.
They've given up 3.
2.
He's given up 2. It was the blister really took away his control. He had averaged 14 pitches per inning before this. Needed 66 pitches to get through 2 innings. By my math, that average is 33 an inning, if my math is correct.
Well done. Proud of you.
We'll sit there as football players, you and I going through injuries. We're in the and I heard you talking about this. We're in the hockey playoffs. They're the toughest players in the world. I know. I'll be waiting for the tweets from some of the toughest athletes in the world.
Oh yeah, I know. Rugby guy will come out of the woodwork for this one. Some wrestling guy somewhere.
Some of the toughest guys in all of sports. Baseball. Listen, we both had our fun with it, with injuries, kind of goofy injuries and stuff. And you sit there and you think, blister. I am not going to blister on the pitching fingers of a pitcher. I mean, and what you need for that pitching hand and the way you're throwing and the friction on your fingers and a blister and how that can mess it up. So good they got him out of there. Let that thing heal and let him keep going.
Maybe a blessing in disguise, too, because it had been a long and rough first couple of innings there. And so when you've got the blister as the backdrop for a reason to get him out there.
Just get out. Pull the cord.
Get him out of there. Maintain the confidence that you've been building. This wasn't a start that he was supposed to make anyway. We remember this is because the game against the Royals got postponed.
Yes.
That he was supposed to start into. So just end a bad situation before it gets going so we can still play the song and feel good.
And it's not the first time we've seen blister situation. Rich Hill of the Dodgers had some issues. I think Aaron Sanchez of the Blue Jays, and you want to go way back, Al Leiter, when he was still pitching, had all kinds of blister issues. They had to get the pickle brine out.
I love the pickle brine.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Good for cramping up and staying
Eagles
hydrated.
Against the Cowboys, 2000 season opener.
And good for blitzers. All right, we got to give Mookie Betts really quick some love here. Yeah. Now, the Red Sox destroyed the Angels in this game. Mookie Betts recorded his third career 3-home-run game Tuesday, tying Ted Williams for the most in Red Sox history. Here's the kicker.
Wait. Let me just let's repeat that.
Yeah.
Whenever you do something, when you tie Ted Williams for the most something in Red Sox history, you're winning.
Yes, you are.
I thought you were about to tweet that.
No. I'll do that later. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, one more time.
I'll say it slow so you can type it out. His third career 3-home-run game, tying Ted Williams for the most in Red Sox history. Here's the kicker. It took Ted Williams 1,863 games to do that. It took Mookie Betts 523 games.
So he halved
to do
it.
that.
He halved it.
He way more than halved it.
Wow.
We're talking about he thirded it. He whatever it did.
Oh, wow. So words and numbers both just going out the window right now. We're punting on all of it.
Did you tweet that?
Not yet, but I will.
Well, maybe skip that last part.
I'll get it to you in the break, and then we'll figure it out. But again, even though it's a rough start and he has the blister, Shohei, you're still our guy.
I want you to Shohei the way.
And the more you tell us not to play that drop,
please tweet in and say you don't like that.
We're playing that drop. Yeah, right. And we'll finish up.
Off the top.
Speaking of confidence and lack thereof, Giancarlo Stanton, the struggle is real. Going 0 for 4 while striking out twice against the Marlins in the Yankees' 9-1 loss. Stanton should just be playing on the road at this point.
He, at home, in 8 home games, is hitting .086 with 20 strikeouts. He didn't record his 20th home strikeout last season until the 18th home game. He got this in his 8th home game. According to Elias, that's the most strikeouts any player's ever had through his first 8 home games in a season. Not the start you want, and from what we understand, he still may not have the furniture in his apartment.
Problems?
I mean, just a lot of problems.
I tell you what, you need one piece of furniture in your apartment right now, and that's the bathtub, because there's only one way to break out of this slump. You got to remind yourself what's important in life. You got to go home and you got to go fill a bathtub with money and just take a bath in it right now if you're Giancarlo Stanton, because that's about the only thing. That is about the only thing you've got going for you, is that there are no good days and bad days, just paydays in your world if you're Giancarlo Stanton. But that's not going to help the masses outside of your apartment building in New York.
Look, man, everybody has their thing for slump busting. Maybe his is a treasure bath.
There you go.
Because he can literally have a treasure bath.
Did you just make that up?
No, there's an old Mel Brooks movie called The History of the World Part 1.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And
I just didn't remember.
It says it's time for a treasure bath, and he lies in the tub and they just throw all the gold
I wish you would have made that up. I wish you would have made that up because it really is good.
It was totally me.
Totally
incredible. 100%. It's incredible. He needs to take a treasure bath.
Look, you get a treasure bath, you wipe off all the bad stuff, and just remind it that you are resplendent in glory and monetary design.
That's a great idea.
If I tried to take a treasure bath, I wouldn't even be able to cover up all the bad parts.
Yeah.
The tub would be pretty low.
Just borrow some of his treasure. You'll be fine.
I don't want to know where
all you need is a dime.
There you go. Let's sound off on the NBA playoffs last night. It's brought to you by ADT. Are you considering home security? Well, consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. Visit ADT.com to learn more. Okay, Junior, you said it a few moments ago that maybe the games haven't been that entertaining so far in round one of the playoffs because they've not really been close except for the first game between the Celtics and the Bucks, which had 2 crazy threes, which sent it to overtime.
First Portland and New Orleans game was pretty good as well.
Yes. But you said that hasn't been that great. However, the post-game press conferences have been really, really good. For example, DeMar DeRozan had, 37 points last night?
Yes, he did.
So he was talking about it, and as he was talking about a very good game for him, for some reason, he was interrupted by teammate Kyle Lowry.
I just let the game come to me, the flow of the game. I go based off that. These days, it's not like I got to have the mindset to go out there and, I got to score 30, 40 points. I go out there and play aggressive.
You just had 37. What you mean?
I didn't go out there saying, let me score 30 tonight.
But I'm saying, you had 37. Don't say it like that.
But I'm saying I didn't go out there
saying. But all I'm saying,
you
can't say that when you had 37.
Listen what I'm trying to explain, though, bro.
I understand what you said, but you
No, you don't. Let me finish. I didn't even...
Can I? Leave.
Like I said, I didn't go out there planning to score 37 points. I went out there to be aggressive, and with my aggressiveness came out 37 points.
Every person who has a significant other has had that discussion about something.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard that and said, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, this sounds like a couple.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish?
I mean, I
didn't
mean
you
it
just
that way.
let me finish?
Will you listen to me? Can I finish what I'm saying? You're missing the point. Yeah. That was fantastic. Loved it.
It confirmed everything I thought I knew about Kyle Lowry just by looking at him, too. Like, Kyle Lowry looks like that little kid in the back of class that's always got something slick to say.
Yes.
Like, that's exactly the demeanor that he carries through life, and I'm glad it's what he brought to that press conference. Because it reminded us that, to your point, celebrities, they're just like us.
Just like us.
They fight, they bicker, they love each other at the core of it.
There you go.
You always tend to fight a little harder with the people you love the most.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing you need to understand, that is, DeMar and Kyle are boys. There's no question about it. And this was Kyle after the game as well, even though what he says, take it with a grain of salt.
DeMar is an unbelievable player, all NBA, MVP type caliber player. 14 from 23 is efficient, 3 for 6 from the 3-point line, 6 for 8 from 3, but also 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and some good defense. He's just grown as a player, and every year I've been with him, he just continues to get better, and I don't care. He's my friend. I don't care. He still sucks as a friend. But as a basketball player, he's really good and just getting better every single year. And when I'm not shooting the ball like that, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I'm not shooting the ball well, the guy, he held it down for our team. 37 points. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
can we take this show on the road for the entire postseason?
It's the sign of true friendship. You can only go so far saying nice things.
Yes.
Before and that meter goes off in your head. Okay, I've gone too long. Have to throw a dig in there. Have to rip them somehow. Then I'll go back to being nice again. That's the true sign of good friendship.
I'm telling you, this is a great PR campaign by these guys too. Because what do we talk about going to the postseason? All we do with these two guys is say this backcourt doesn't get it done in the postseason, and by that we mean they don't beat LeBron, which they have in common with a lot of people over the course of the last 15 years. And so what do? Get people to like you a little bit. Get the buddy cop thing going right here. Maybe get an ad out of this one. I think it can all be part of turning around the narrative.
What ad could work with kind of the bickering too back and forth? We'd have to think of that.
I feel like you could get a Sour Patch Kids deal out of this. Sweet, sour, and gone. You get a little both of that. A little left and right Twix maybe.
Yeah, Twix, right Twix, left Twix seems to make the most sense.
I'm telling you, listen, if you guys
by
need
the way,
an
way
agent,
to go to your candy strength, by the way. Nothing else.
What
candy could I, not even food, candy. Yeah. Just sugar-coated goodness is the one thing you were thinking of.
It was already on my brain, so it was an easy bridge to
There's
make
a shocker.
Right.
By the way, you know who was on Eric Bledsoe's brain?
Who's that?
Terry Rozier. Now, Eric Bledsoe, of course, we all thought that the Bucks would do better in this series, but history says they won't because the Celtics have never lost a series in which they're up 2-0. And Terry Rozier for the Celtics has had 2 games, 20 points or more. I think 23 and 21 in the first 2 games. So Eric Bledsoe of the Bucks was asked about just how well Terry Rozier has been playing.
Terry Rozier's gotten off to a strong start to this series. No turnovers in 78 minutes. How personally do you take that matchup?
Who?
Terry Rozier.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay. Yeah. Stop that now.
Yeah. I mean, do you realize how ridiculous you sound?
Apparently not.
It just sounds dumb.
Maybe he doesn't actually know.
I mean, seriously, it is just so foolish to say. Because Rozier, good for him, because of course, what's the first thing you do when that happens if you're a reporter is you go run to Rozier and say, hey, you know what Eric Bledsoe said?
He doesn't even know who you are.
He doesn't even know who you are. But exactly right.
Should we help Eric with Terry Rozier?
Well, really quick, what Rozier said in response when he was asked about it, Rozier wanted no part of it. He said, I'm not feeding into that.
There you go.
Good for him.
Attaboy.
That's the right answer. And Bledsoe, you've got to be kidding me. Not only are you getting smoked on the court, but now you sound ridiculous in the postgame.
And let's do a public service.
Okay.
Let's help Eric Bledsoe.
Oh.
Okay?
All right.
Terry William Rozier III was born on March 17th, 1994.
Uh-huh.
He started Shaker Heights High School in Shaker Heights, Ohio.
Yes.
Very nice Cleveland suburb.
Absolutely.
Graduating in 2012. In his senior year, he averaged 25.6 points, 6.5 boards, 4.5 assists, 4.7 steals per game, leading Shaker Heights to a 21-3 record and taking him to the regional semifinal. He was the 74th overall in the 2012 ESPNU Top 100 Players, went to Louisville, played for a few years. One of his best friends in high school was a guy named Jimmy Pope, who happened to be my son's roommate for 2 years at Georgetown. So there you go, Eric.
Look at the connection.
Now you know everything you need to know about Terry Rozier.
I don't even know that is.
Well, you can't
Seriously.
say that anymore, can you?
I mean, seriously, is that a ridiculous comment to make or what?
We just need to get Terry Rozier into it, but we need to get him with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan so he can learn to talk some bleep, because they run over with that, be like, I can tell you exactly who I am, and I just started reading the stat line when he was guarding me. Be like, listen, what happened to you last game, bum?
I tell you what, man, if I were Eric Bledsoe's teammates, I'd be handing him a bio really quick.
Yeah.
This is who he is.
Yeah.
You better get to know him even more because he knows you and he knows to go up, do what to do against you.
Well, just get on Jimmy Pope, who was his teammate in high school and my son's roommate and played football with Georgetown. He'll break down everything we need to know. Jimmy Pope, we'll get him on to talk about Terry Rozier. Also played for the Maine Red Claws, by the way, before he went up to the Boston Celtics.
Well, see, there you go.
Bonus.
Is Jimmy
Rozier.
Pope the new Alex Periano?
Yeah,
my
is.
column.
Jimmy Pope is
the
the man.
Maine Red Claws, that's an awesome nickname.
It's a very good nickname.
And I completely understand why.
Lobster.
Yeah, but that is awesome.
Golic
and Wingo.
and Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. So what's trending in the NBA? It's the Raptors beating the Wizards 130-119. Toronto leads that series 2-0. Their first ever 2-0 lead in a playoff series in franchise history, and DeMar DeRozan a big reason why.
Yeah, 37 points in this one. He was a monster, and you just heard some of that. It's great to hear DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, two buddies, how they go back and forth in that. But, with Washington, John Wall, who had missed a lot of time with injury, did have 29 in this one. But Toronto, we keep talking about them as everybody's saying they're different this year. The bottom line is they have to get over that Eastern Conference hump, which is the LeBron one. And who knows if they'll even see him. That would be the second round matchup. LeBron and company have to get it done against the Pacers, which I think most of us still think they would do, which would put them together in the second round. And that's when the talk will really start and saying, is this Toronto team really ready to take the next step?
And it's amazing that has to be the standard that we judge them by.
But they've done that, right? I mean, they're the reason why we're saying it.
Well, no, LeBron's the reason why we're saying it. LeBron is the reason for all this, the same way Golden State is in the West. Do you think these teams, some of these teams, Boston, Philadelphia, and the like, are really looking hard at this summer for LeBron and saying, man, if he goes to the West, all of a sudden it is open season for us in the East, man. We got our shot.
Well, listen, again, the offseason sometimes is more interesting than any part of the NBA regular season or postseason, but right now the postseason has been pretty interesting. Raptors most points in a playoff game in franchise history with 130. Celtics take a 2-0 lead over the Bucks, which history says this series is over. Jaylen Brown, 30 points. Brown, at 21 years old, 175 days, is the youngest player in Celtics history to score 30 points in a playoff game.
Yeah, pretty impressive what he's done. Terry Rozier has a couple of big games, 23 points in this one. He's gone, 78 minutes, no turnovers.
That's the most impressive thing.
Really is impressive, even though Eric Bledsoe from Milwaukee still doesn't know who he is, though. A little back and forth. That may go back to game one. Either way, I picked Milwaukee in this one. I thought without, obviously, Hayward had been out the whole year, but then without Kyrie, I mean, seriously, I mean, that's the man on this team. Celtics still getting it done. Middleton had a slow start in this one, still ended up with 25. Antetokounmpo had 30. Antetokounmpo had a play where he was dribbling up court and Shane Larkin tried to get a charging foul. It was at the free throw line.
Oh, yeah, no, that.
The free throw line, and he moved, and it was a blocking foul, and Giannis was falling down just inside the free throw line and put up a shot and made it. I mean, it showed you why he was the Greek freak, the athlete that he was, to try and have an attempt at the three-point play. But the Celtics, man, so undermanned here, especially obviously without Kyrie, and what the youngins are doing out there is pretty impressive.
I feel like he's really transitioning now to a one-name same guy. I feel like we're making the move to Giannis. Before it was the Greek Freak when he was just kind of a dunk contest, dunk phenom guy. And now that he's become an actual bona fide star, you can try and play me off all you want. I promise you. I'll start thanking the Pope. I'd like to thank my mom, the Milwaukee Bucks, and everyone for making this moment possible. No, you can't silence me.
We move
you
on.
and your clock mean nothing.
There we go.
Nothing to me.
Very quickly, here's why history says it's over. The Celtics are 35-0 when they have a 2-0 lead in a best-of-7 series. And, oh, by the way, the Bucks are 0-13 when they're down.
Those aren't good stats.
History says we'd like to thank the Bucks for their participation in the playoffs.
While we're on the subject, we also probably need to talk about Brad Stevens, who's not getting nearly enough shine for Coach of the Year. The guy is just incredible.
We move
the
on.
job he has put together
Meanwhile,
with
the
this
Pelicans
team.
beat the Trailblazers 111-102. Pelicans lead this series 2-0.
Remember, they lost Gordon Hayward at the beginning of the year, too. People forget that.
Shut up. Here we go. Isn't that this one, I picked Portland. Who did you pick in this one?
I think I picked Portland.
I know I picked Portland in this one. I mean, New Orleans getting 2 on the road here. Drew Holiday, both ends of the court in this one, playing over 38 minutes, 33 points, but playing good defense as well. And Anthony Davis, I mean, you're just waiting for him to start to get the MVP awards at some point when we keep wanting to talk about young players, young aspiring players, Joel Embiid's of the world, the Karl Anthony Towns of the world. Anthony Davis is not old. It just seems like he's been in the league forever, been nicked up for a while, but boy, oh boy, I mean, again, how many MVPs are in his future?
You can talk about youth, and you can talk about Jaylen Brown and the night that he had for the Boston Celtics last night, 30 points, and just wow. I mean, one of the youngest guys to do it for them in the playoffs. It has been incredible playing for a young coach, too. Youth, you want to talk about youth and excitement? You're talking about the Boston Celtics.
Joke's over.
Yeah. It's over when I say it's over.
No, actually, it's over.
You and the clock, all of you mean nothing. You're figments. You're constructs.
It's actually over when I and they decide it's over.
Wow.
By the way,
turn my mic right
Holiday,
back on.
again, we talked about the career-high 33 points. The Blazers, 2-19 in series when trailing 2-0.
God,
so
hurry up,
history
Trey.
is against them, and I hit the
Good
buzzer.
job.
And
you did. You got the shot off.
Kids, that's how it's done.
There you go.
So, speaking of how it's done, apparently the process is working in Philadelphia, and one of the largest stars in the NFL dared to go there. Now, look, obviously, if you try to tank in the NFL, you will get many parts of your body hurt.
Yes, you
It's
will.
not possible. However, it has been a tumultuous offseason for one Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay quarterback. He saw his quarterback coach, Alex Van Pelt, not given a new deal. He saw his favorite wide receiver over the years, Jordy Nelson, shipped out to Oakland, or cut, basically, and then was signed by John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders. So as Aaron Rodgers showed up for off-season workouts, you think maybe he was a little upset. He decided he wanted to take the high road and went there.
I know my role, and that's to play quarterback the best that I can, and the team is going to try and put the right guys in place, the right coaches in place, the right players in place. And you just have to trust the process. As we've talked about over the years, this process works, and it has worked for Mike for a number of years. Obviously, that's why he's still here in his 13th season. We've had a lot of success here, and you've got to trust the process. They're paying me to play quarterback to the best of my abilities, and their job descriptions are to handle those type of things. So I think you just act accordingly.
So there's a lot to get into there. First of all, former Sixers GM Sam Hinkie has to be thinking, see, I tried to tell everybody, and nobody wanted to believe me. Second of all, I don't believe Aaron is going down the, hey, we're gonna lose to get better drafted. That's not the process he's saying. Trust. No. What he's saying is, look, it's been fairly successful here with the way Mike McCarthy, formerly Ted Thompson, and now their new GM have run things. So I'm going to step back a little bit, but I also think he's saying in a way, all right, guys, you want me to just play quarterback? I'll just go play quarterback. But you guys better get it done now.
Well, let me ask you, do you think, we see this obviously in basketball all the time, the top players, we always hear, especially about LeBron, he's really the coach, the GM running the show, and the players have power in the NBA. Do you think a player should have that kind of power in NFL? Not so much power, but be asked about decisions?
Well, whether they should is almost irrelevant, because they never will, because they'll never have the guaranteed contracts outside of Kirk Cousins that you get all the time in the NBA. So whether it's right or wrong, that dollar sign tends to mean a lot more when that money is assigned to you and you know you're going to get it. So, I mean, look, Aaron is what? He's got 2 years left on his deal, Brett? Is that correct? Yeah. 2 years left. And he's seeing all these deals that are going around, and he knows, hey, I'm going to get paid one way or the other. But people are wondering, have the Packers not done enough in the Aaron Rodgers era at his prime.
Yeah, and I guess to answer, I asked you the question, I'd answer the question, and maybe it comes from my years as and you were the same way, Mike, we're foot soldiers, right? I mean, we weren't at the top of the food chain to be in a position to think anybody would come to us for a decision. So I've always played with that mentality of just what Aaron said, whether he was saying it tongue in cheek or not and bringing up the process so many times. I do think, they make those decisions and let you know this is who your teammates are going to be. I don't think you should be going to players and asking them their decisions. Now, the one thing we know that upset him, and maybe it's a different part of it, was the quarterback coach, Alex Van Pelt, that they lost and they didn't talk to him about there. But if they were going to get rid of him, maybe they didn't want to talk to Aaron Rodgers about that situation. But I never believe, but I know it happens obviously in the NBA with the guaranteed contracts and the guys on the court, offense, defense. You know, you're all encompassing as opposed to just playing one side of the ball in the NFL.
You can understand it with Aaron Rodgers though, to an extent, right? We just dealt with this problem in New England where everyone assumes the importance of their part, but the difference is everyone involved is otherworldly great at what they do, and Brady and Belichick and Kraft and all the like. No one else in this Packers organization is as good as their job as Aaron is at his. They're not even close.
Mike McCarthy's a pretty good head coach.
Mike McCarthy's a pretty good head coach, but is he one of the 2 or 3 greatest head coaches in the league right now? Is he one of the best coaches of all time? Doubt it.
Look,
none of the other guys in this organization. So I'm just saying from Aaron's perspective, especially for the things that affect him, his primary target at wide receiver, the guy that he spends his meeting time with in the quarterback room, to all of a sudden look around and say, oh, okay, you guys took those from me. That's fine. I'll trust you, but it better be something good in return because you talk about the importance of NBA players. You could argue if one guy is as important to his team in the NFL as an NBA player is to their team, it's Aaron Rodgers. This team is nothing without him. Nothing.
Well, we saw that last year when he went down with a broken collarbone and their season was lost. Look, I'm not going to say Mike McCarthy is one of the greatest coaches of all time, but I've always been struck by the way Bill Belichick talks about Mike McCarthy when those two teams play. It's pretty clear that Belichick has a hell of a lot of respect for Mike McCarthy and the way he goes about his business. That, to me, carries a lot of weight. So I'm not going to say he's up there with Bill Belichick, but outside of Belichick and Mike McCarthy, those are some of the best coaches we got in football.
I think to Mike's point, I agree. You have Belichick, Brady, Gronkowski. Yeah. Best in the business, best in the business, best in the business.
And some best of all time in those situations.
Right, exactly right. And you don't have that in Green Bay. And I know Green Bay fans. I mean, listen, Green Bay fans had Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And you're like, we need to, how many right now, how many Super Bowl wins do you have with all of those?
That would be one.
So you're like, we went back to back. Some of the only other back to backs you can talk about maybe that great in this modern time was Steve Young, Joe Montana.
Yeah.
And what do you have to show for it? Right now they have one. It's like, we gotta make hay while we have one of the great quarterbacks playing.
Absolutely. And Aaron is 34. And look, Tom is obviously showing us that you can play a long time at a high level, but at some point, he had to realize he's the outlier, especially when Aaron is more of an athletic quarterback.
Yes.
Tom is strictly, by the book, make the play, all that kind of stuff. And he's sneaky, but Aaron is much more athletic when it comes to moving around in the pocket than Brady is. So you want to make sure you capitalize what you can, and it's going to be very interesting going forward, seeing what happens with Aaron Rodgers when he trusts the process. Well, we all trust a very important process, ladies and gentlemen. And as Carol in Virginia wants to know, it's that time.
It's the game show segment that's captivating a nation.
The origin is Latin. It has been sort of corrupted over time, like this show.
Making everyone that hears it smarter.
In the 1800s, English authors were likely to partake in opium den activities.
Now, with your host, researcher Brett.
Take a guess where that came from. Brett's got your answer.
It's Brettomology.
Here are the categories. Words and their meanings. That's straightforward.
And that is the only category. Brettomology is brought to you by Discover Card, who will match all the cash back new card members earn at the end of their first years. Learn more at discover.com/match. And as always, limitations apply. Okay, we mentioned Carol from Virginia.
Yes, we did.
Apparently, Brett has a fan, and this is something that Carol called in to say how much she loves Brett and Brettomology.
Hey, Golic and Wingo, it's Carol from Virginia. I love your show, and I love Brettomology. Just a suggestion for Brett. Work on your pronunciations like Aristophanes, not Aristophanes, Pliny, not Pliny, and Pompey, not Pompeii, the city which was destroyed by Vesuvius. By the way, Brett, you are so right about Bob Dylan. He can't sing. Have a great day.
Wow. Is that your mom?
Wow.
Is that your mom?
You know, I have a bonus phrase for you guys this week.
Or?
And The origin is Carol from Virginia.
Okay.
Throwing shade.
Yeah. Throwing shade. All right.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. We're going to get to the action.
So it really wasn't it at all.
All right. So the one thing about this that needs to improve.
Yeah.
Trey, you and I are both 7 for 12. Mike is here this
His
time
inaugural,
as well.
It's his expansion run. So if he can do as well as the Golden Knights, we'll be very impressed.
He would always be in the back group when they would be answering what we need to improve upon. Cliff, this is on you.
Yeah.
Who's right and who's wrong? So hold off until we ask. If we get different answers here, who's right, who's wrong, before we do the buzzer.
I think we're just going to go with Brett because Cliff messed it up.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. That's right.
Cliff, you're out.
We love Cookmaster Cliff.
Yeah.
We love you. But
Except
this one
this.
may be outside your window of expertise.
Yeah, good point.
All right, Brett, here we go. What is the first phrase?
All right. Phrase number 1 of 4. Big cheese. Means the most important person.
Aaron Rodgers. The big enchilada. Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy?
Is it?
Gouda?
Cheese became a slang term for money during the Great Depression when food prices spiked and cheese was largely inaccessible to people, especially in cities. Big cheese was slang for someone who had the means to afford whatever groceries they wanted.
I really like that definition. Or.
Prior to cheesy meaning second rate, in the 1800s in Britain, it was a slang term to call something the cheese, which meant it was the best of its kind.
Wow.
I am going with numero uno.
2.
You're going with 1.
Junior, you're going with 2. I'm going with 1.
I think I'm going to go with 1 as well.
So 1 or 2. Brett, is it 1 or 2 correct?
2 is correct.
No way.
Right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. Woo. Junior is 1 for 1, and we are 7 for 13. Wow. All right, what's next?
Gravy train.
Oh, great.
The gravy train.
Easy job.
We got a food theme going today, Brett.
We do.
You
the
hungry?
The theme is food today.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Does he look hungry?
Is it 1920s railroad workers used this term as shorthand to describe a job that would be easy but pay well? Gravy was already slang for easy money at the time, so it was a short jump to combine it with the industry they were working in.
Mm-hmm.
Or
in
the early 1900s, elite families in New York City would have elaborate staffs working in their homes. The easiest job was working in the kitchen. Those who worked the kitchen duty were said to be, quote, riding the gravy boat, which eventually became the gravy train.
All right, could you read that first one again to me?
The first one. Ooh. 1920s railroad workers used this term as shorthand to describe a job that would be easy but pay well. Gravy was already slang for easy money, so it was a short jump to combine it with the industry they were working in.
Well, I tell you what, the wrong ones are well done.
Yeah, this is
really
the closest you've ever gone.
I'm going with number 2.
I'm going number 1.
Mike, where do you go?
2 spot. Got to be 2.
So 1 or 2 correct.
2. Number 1 is correct.
Bang! Man! Bang! There we go.
Bamboozled.
Yes. Who's the smart guy now? There you go. So Junior is 1 for 2. I am 8 for 13. Golic is 7 for 13. All right, what do you got,
14.
smart guy?
Upset the apple cart.
Aha!
To create difficulty.
Yes.
Is it the apple cart originally referred to the human body? Francis Gross first documented it in 1788 in the Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue.
Gross.
When upset the apple cart meant to knock a man off his feet.
That was a lot. Or
during the late 1800s in the South, organized crime syndicates paid farmers to transport contraband along with their produce. When a supply line was cut off, the police literally upset the apple cart. The phrase came back during Prohibition in the 1920s, by which point the apple cart itself was gone, but the smuggling remained.
I feel really good about 2.
I do as well.
I feel really good about 2.
If not, it's one of the greatest made-up ones I've heard.
I feel really good about 2.
Don't go against the family.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Got to be 1. Got to be 1.
2.
Got to be 1. Number 1 is correct.
Oh, my. That's what I'm talking about. Man.
Wow.
I see you, Devin.
Wow. That was a really good one, because I read a book once called Cosa Nostra about the start of the Italian mob and how they did use apple carts and part of that stuff in New York City. So
look where all that reading got you.
They actually stuffed the guy in a barrel once.
Reading means nothing.
Reading has done nothing good for anyone.
I'm 0 for 3, by the way.
Did you just say reading has not done no good for anyone?
No. Did you get the answer right from your book?
No, but that's
reading is fundamental.
Way to take a really gross generalization.
I got mine from the internet.
I don't read a lot. Look at me.
Like I said.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
Last one this week.
All right, your final phrase. To chew the fat.
Chew the fat.
Yes.
Something these two clearly have a clear advantage on.
I have to get this one right.
Chew myself.
And we are going to take it to the British Army.
Going to the Army!
Is it from the War of 1812, when British soldiers allied with the legendary Shawnee warrior Tecumseh, I'm sure Carol's going to correct me on that.
Oh, yeah.
And his army of Native Americans, the British scouts stationed with the Native American scouts observed their custom of chewing on buffalo or rabbit hides, which they would do during any tedious periods, like when they were on post or the tracking mission.
Yeah.
Or is it a British Army term documented by J. Brunless Patterson in 1885? British soldiers in India in the 1800s would often sit around during idle times and chew on their rations of salted pork.
Okay, you see what he's done here, first of all.
Yeah.
Both definitions have the words British soldiers and either India or Indians. So if you had any sort of thought process of how this may lead you, he's thrown you because you could hear either one of those things in the correct answer.
Number one.
Number one strong.
Number one.
Number two is correct.
Oh, come on.
You're a jerk. Get out of here.
I'm going to give you a little bit extra context here. It actually it evolved from the term chew the cud, which is what a cow does.
Yeah.
Animals have to regurgitate their food and chew on it.
We got that.
Yeah, we get that. Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
I'm just giving you more context.
Okay, good. Your time's up. I went 0 for 4.
You took. By the way, you started 4 for 4. You're now under 500.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, so if we're going by percentages, I'm tied for first right now.
Yeah,
Let's go.
By the way, you have not gotten one right in the last 2 weeks.
No, I've not. I was 4
got
for 4.
One
Wow.
right. I'm batting 500.
Yeah,
so I'm in the Hall of Fame.
And you're batting 500, 8 for 16, and Junior, you're 2 for 4.
Yeah, but it's
hot start.
That's like hitting 3 home runs in one game and hitting 4 the rest of the year.
I agree. He's got to build. He's got to build it up a little more.
You can get Player of the Week hitting 3 home runs in a game.
Yes, once. Do it for the season. See, right now I'm in the Hall of Fame at 8 for 16. I'm just telling you right now I'm in the Hall of Fame.
I just stink.
So back to that reading thing and how it's working for you.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Ryan! I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Mel Kiper Jr.
Yes.
And Mel is in the zone, and he's brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. Mel, good morning. How are we?
Guys, man.
We're good. We're good. So we just had Bradley Chubb on, Mel. And Louis Riddick, as you heard in the draft meeting we had in Baltimore, because it was your hometown, we had to come to you, Mel, for the draft meeting. Everybody had to go to the Great Brain and go to Mel Kiper's
I tried
place.
to change that train. Nobody listened.
You bet. He says Chubb compares very favorably to Myles Garrett, who was the number 1 overall pick last year of the Cleveland Browns. And when he finally got over the ankle injury, Myles showed us why he was the number 1 overall pick. Do you believe that's a fair and apt comparison for Bradley Chubb in this year's draft?
You know, you look at a Cameron Wake type. I went back at the measurables of Wake and what Bradley Chubb is. Myles Garrett was an off the charts. He was a freakish talent, as was Jadeveon Clowney. And both were, Clowney's a phenomenal unblockable player, and Myles Garrett, when he was healthy this year, was unblockable at times. So both are in a special category. Chubb may be just a run below that. But in this draft, he's the best defensive player, and he's certainly in the draft where there's very few defensive ends that are going to be guaranteed starters in this league, maybe beyond Chubb, then Marcus Davenport, Texas San Antonio, and a lot of question marks thereafter. So, Bradley Chubb's the guy. It's going to be interesting, though. Where does he go? when you have the quarterbacks up there high and you got Saquon Barkley, running back Penn State, up there high. The Cleveland Browns looking at Myles Garrett on one side, Bradley Chubb on the other, with Emmanuel Ogbah coming off as the third guy. So I think the Cleveland Browns are in a great spot, knowing at 4 guys, they're going to get Saquon Barkley or Bradley Chubb, and that may be a chance to look at both. Certainly one of those two will be there.
Hey, Mel, just to kind of refresh people about the players in this draft, because we're seeing obviously mock drafts now of where we think players are going to go. But go back to the big board for a moment for those that maybe haven't looked at it, and how many players are listed at other positions other than quarterback? When does that first quarterback show up, just to show how many other players are considered high picks in this draft?
Yeah, I think the majority of people, Goalie, would have a quarterback at 5, 6, 7 in that area. I have Josh Allen at 5, Sam Darnold at 6, and then a drop off to Rose and then a drop to Mayfield. So I think you look at who's the best player in the draft, Saquon Barkley, running back Penn State. Then you look at Bradley Chubb, defensive end NC State. Then you get into players like Roquan Smith, the great linebacker of Georgia, Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame. So, and then comes the quarterback. So that's where that next group is. Derwin James, the safety, Florida State, Minkah Fitzpatrick from Alabama, DB, and Denzel Ward, the corner from Ohio State, are right there after, or some would say ahead of the quarterback. So that's the top elite players in this draft, the positional guys.
And Mel, that's what makes this draft interesting. Is this hour of Golic and Wingo is brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business. Listen to Mel and you'll win at the business of drafting football players. But one of the things that came out of that 8-hour meeting we had in Baltimore was that while quarterbacks will go at the top of this draft, arguably the best players in this draft may fall in that 6 to 12 range.
No doubt about it. That's why projections from that 6 to 12 range are all very similar, because you're pushing the quarterbacks up. Then you have an easy situation of mocking those picks because of need and where they'll go. The only, I think, question mark is the 3 DBs, because Derwin James is a true safety, Denzel Ward's a true cover corner, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is, we don't know. He's a hybrid. He's a slot corner, he's a safety. So I think those 3 are in are different positions, but we know who the players are. And I think Roquan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia, has moved ahead of Tremaine Edmonds from Virginia Tech. Edmonds could be there at 10 to 12, which is pretty remarkable for a kid with his freakish talent. So this draft's very interesting because of those 4 quarterbacks all pressed up near the top of the board.
What trend do you see going on possibly in the first round? Lack of position maybe that we're used to seeing a lot of in the past, or a different trend?
You just don't see defensive ends and outside linebackers. That's the problem this year. You have a quarterback situation where these guys are coming in and you're throwing it all over the yard, yet you can't get guys to get heat on the quarterback out of this draft. So you're seeing outside linebackers very questionable, defensive ends very questionable. That's why Bradley Chubb is the guy. And then Marcus Davenport, Texas San Antonio, is kind of a mid-first. You're hard-pressed to find another guy to put in a late first. You know, but Harold Landry, who was a little too quiet at Boston College this year for my liking. You look at Lorenzo Carter, Georgia, the workout warrior. The production didn't match the talent. Where are you going after that? So I think that's the issue here, is teams trying to find pass rushers better really do some good scouting and maybe find a 3rd to 5th rounder that can become maybe a Robert Mathis type. You may be able to find that type of guy. They're not defined guys in the early part of the draft. And everybody thought Robert Mathis was going to be Robert Mathis. He wouldn't have dropped where he did. So that's always easier after the fact. But defensive ends, outside linebackers this year, just not good, especially at the 1st and 2nd round area.
Mel Kiper Jr. with us talking about the draft. And I always like to tell this story, Mel, because people ask me all the times that the 15 years that I've done the draft, what's the weirdest things that ever happened during your draft coverage? And I can't remember who the player was or what year it was. I want to say it was like 2007, 2008, maybe 2009. There was a player that was drafted. Now, the NFL at that time puts out a list of all eligible draft players. He wasn't on that list, but in your blue book that was hasn't been done for a few years because everything's online now, Mel Kiper Jr. found this player and he was in the book. So you had found a player that could be drafted, that was drafted, that the NFL at that time didn't even think was going to be drafted. That's how serious your preparation is. That's how much you take this to heart. I want you to explain to people, because people just see you on ESPN doing it forever. What does this draft mean to you? How did it become such a thing for you?
Well, Trey, you're the only one who knew it that year. I would have never known what you said that happened. So you pointed out, because obviously I've never heard anybody do the research and know the stuff that you do. So you're pointing out stuff I would have never had a clue about. But I think to go back to that, it started with basically when you come up as a kid and you see the NFL and you see the only way to improve a football team is via the draft. There were no trades hardly. There was no free agency, and people weren't seeing these players. So I figured, okay, if you can see the players, tell people, the fans around the country, what these players can do and can't do, And the draft is so critical because that's the only way your team is changing from one year to the next, improving from what they were to what they want to be. I thought the fans, I remember Ernie Accorsi, who was a Hall of Fame GM in the NFL all those years, was a good friend of mine. He was the one that really gave me great advice and great knowledge and really showed me the way when I was a 16, 18-year-old kid. He always said, hey, don't just give this stuff away. There's a market for this. Fans will crave this type of information. Because at the time, guys, I was just sending it to the NFL and to the media. Okay, it wasn't available to fans back in 78, 79, 80. Became available to fans to purchase in 1981. So that was Ernie Accorsi. He was a great friend all those years and gave me some unbelievable advice.
Talking to Mel Kiper Jr. Check out the First Draft podcast with Mel and Todd McShay. New episodes weekly on the ESPN app and Apple Podcasts. Mel, the key we know to drafts is finding those gems after that first round. And last year, there were a couple at the running back position, Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt. Kamara with the Saints, Hunt with the Chiefs in the third round.
Yeah.
Who are those guys? Who have the potential to be those guys, the diamond more in the rough?
Yeah. I think a guy that's going to be a kid out of the SEC who's going to drop to the third round is Nick Chubb, the running back out of Georgia. You're going to see Sony Michel, his teammate at Georgia, go probably second round, maybe late first. You're going to see Ronald Jones, the second out of USC, maybe go second round. And you're going to see Nick Chubb drop just a little bit. And I think as a third round pick, he'll make a lot of sense. A receiver I love, and you remember Isaac Bruce when he came out of Memphis. And he goes to the Rams in the second round. He had a great career. Anthony Miller is out of Memphis, and he is a former walk-on who had a great 2 years at Memphis. I highlighted him on ESPN.com early in the year. Special talent. He could go second round and be a steal. If he drops to the third, it's unbelievable. I don't think he will. I'll give you a defensive lineman, guys, in the third round area that could be better than some of the guys go in the second or even late first is Breeland Speaks, a kid out of Ole Miss. The difference between 2 years ago and this year was remarkable. Played inside, played outside, tested well. Production this year matched that talent. Breeland Speaks is a kid out of Ole Miss. If somebody's going to get in the third round, I think is going to have a very good career as a versatile, talented defensive lineman.
How about a guy, and I'll be a little biased here, at Notre Dame who started to get talk in the Heisman was Josh Adams. The knee injury certainly affected him later on in the season. Thought he would go back to try and improve his draft stock. Where is he right now?
Well, he's in that next tier. That's where you look at a Nick Chubb, a Josh Adams, a Kalen Ballage out of Arizona State, a wild card like Nyheim Hines out of NC State who can do everything, catch, return punts, kickoffs, and run very effectively. Could be a good number two back. He could be this year's version of, say, Deion Lewis is what Nyheim Hines could be. So I think all those guys, Josh Adams, that's that group of running backs that you know, guys, next year and the year after, we're going to say, how'd that guy get to the fourth, fifth round?
Right.
How'd he get there? It happens every year. And one of those guys I mentioned is going to be that fourth or fifth rounder that ends up being a very productive NFL player.
Well, listen, it's one of those things, Mel, is you go through the evaluating process. So many guys, when they're looking at a first-round pick, they want to believe that he checks all the boxes.
Right.
Is he this tall? Is he this fast? Are his hands this size? And sometimes you look for those things as opposed to what you see on tape.
Yeah.
And that's why so many times in the second or third round, you're just watching tape and you're like, damn, that guy can play. And sometimes those picks are better than the first round picks because people want to defend that first round pick by saying, well, he checked all the boxes. Speaking of that, Mel, obviously the draft class of 83 from a quarterback perspective is the one that's always talked about. You had 6 in the first round, but let's be honest. Only 3 of those were home runs. They all ended up in the Hall of Fame, obviously, in Dan Marino, John Elway, and Jim Kelly. The other 3, Champagne Tony Eason, no. Todd Blackledge, no. And Ken O'Brien, who was serviceable, but certainly not nearly as one of those other ones. We could have 5 quarterbacks go in the first round here, and maybe potentially 6 if somehow Mason Rudolph gets into the back end of the first round here. 10 years from now, if you had to say, I'm going to bet on these 3 quarterbacks to be the ones in this year's draft, where is Mel putting his money right now?
You know, go back to 2004 when the 3 went, they were all really good. I remember everybody saying, who's going to be the bust out of Eli, Roethlisberger, and Rivers? And none of the 3 were busts. They were all outstanding quarterbacks, and we're still debating who's the 1, 2, 3 of that group, how you even rank them, but they were all excellent. So that's a rarity, guys, when you get 3 that go high and all become really good and winners in the NFL. I think you look at this group, the one that I think is the one that's the most difficult, and the one that I will say, remember when Manziel came out and said, I don't know what kind of quarterback, man. I have no idea. I don't have any idea on Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield to me is one, somebody's going to take him, and we hope he's an outstanding. I don't know what kind of, I have no idea on Baker Mayfield. So he's the one I would say I'd push back just a little bit. Josh Rosen, the concern with me is durability. The last 2 years, he had the shoulder, then the concussions, and then you get Josh Allen, who I'll tell you, I was kind of skeptical early midseason, and all of a sudden you start watching him play, and then he comes back from that injury, and then he goes through the process, and the improvement that he made with Jordan Palmer was significant. It wasn't just all thrown against air guys. It was in games as well. It was a Central Michigan game, then the Senior Bowl, and then certainly what he's done thereafter. So I want Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen in that order.
Again, I'm with you there. There's a little concern about Baker just because it could go either way. We talk about that fiery impact that he has. Drew Brees certainly is that fiery leader, but you know what? Drew Brees backs it up with the way he plays. That stuff with Baker is really interesting. And you always hear, Mel, well, his teammates love him. Well, yeah, because they're all 18 to 22 years old. Mike, you can relate to this. If that guy is giving you that rah-rah stuff and he's not playing and you're a 28-year-old or 29 offensive or defensive lineman, you don't want to hear any of that. Just go make plays, man. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. It reminds me, Mel, a little bit of Jameis Winston a few years ago when he put his fingers together and said, let's go eat that win. Yeah. And some of the players were looking, dude, what are you talking about? Just go make plays for us to win. So the Baker stuff is great in terms of how it relates to college players. But unless he's playing well, none of that's going to relate to NFL veterans.
Yeah, and I think the main thing with Baker is you're 6 feet and a half, so you got to beat the odds there, and then you have to be eliminating the antics and the drama. And that you look at the great quarterbacks in the NFL. How many brought with them all that other stuff? They didn't. And I think that's the thing that with Baker. And I think if he does that, he has a chance to be a really good quarterback, no doubt about it. But to answer your question, Trey, who would you bet on for me? And I know there are a lot of people who would bet against. I would bet on Josh Allen, and I would bet on Sam Darnold. Darnold, I thought back in August would be the clear-cut guy. He had some hiccups, bad habits. I'll still like him a lot, and I like Josh Allen a lot more than a lot of other people do. And you say, it's crazy, Trey. You brought this up, and I thought it was a great point. I'm sitting there saying everybody's hating on Josh. You said, no, he's going to be the number one pick. Shut up. And you're right. I got to realize he's going to be maybe the number one pick. So I don't have to defend Josh Allen, but it seems like against a lot of people, they're saying, hey, he shouldn't be. He doesn't deserve it. He's this, he's that. So there's a lot of haters and negativity out there for a guy that could be the number one pick overall. So I guess I got to shut up on that and trying to defend Josh Allen. Let his arm defend himself.
Absolutely.
Along those lines, Mel, when you and this is all about seeing who's going to get picked where, but then forecasting what they're going to do. You look at guys that are jumping into their fifth year. We kept talking about the fifth year option and how well they play, like an Odell Beckham, like a Zach Martin, like an Aaron Donald. Who are going to be those guys? Who are a couple of guys you think in the next 4 or 5 years are going to have not just a couple of Pro Bowls under the belt, but be all pros as well?
It's a great question. I think when you look at the receivers and the tight end group, and that's a very difficult group to find who that guy is going to be. I would bet on the two tight ends, Dallas Goedert, South Dakota State, and Hayden Hurst, South Carolina, because one's the basketball background from Division I AA, and one's a kid who's 24, going to be 25 when he sees me again, who loves the block, and that's kind of a Heath Miller type player when he came out of Virginia. So I would bet on the tight ends. The receivers are interesting, guys. I think these two receivers that everybody's pushing back will end up being more productive as rookies and second-year guys than the three that went in the top 10 and did very little this past year. You think about where those guys were, John Ross, a Corey Davis and the like. Where are those? Mike Williams. But I think Calvin Ridley from Alabama, who's gotten pushed back, he didn't have the great quarterback throwing the ball, and he didn't have the great vertical jump, but he's a good football player. And DJ Moore from Maryland, who did well on the field with 4 different quarterbacks and had an unbelievable workout. I think those two kids, if they go in the 20s, that's a pretty good spot for those two receivers to turn out to be a lot better than maybe people think they will be, considering that 3 guys went in the top 10 last year. That I think these two guys are just as good as those guys were, and you're going to get them at a better point in the first round. And then on the defensive side, real quick, guys, I think the cornerback position with Jair Alexander, you talk about an exciting kid to watch. When he was healthy at Louisville, he's intercepting passes, he's dynamic after he catches. He's kind of Dion-like in the open field with his return skills, and when he gets the ball in his hands, I would bet on Jair Alexander from Louisville to really have a nice pro career.
Yeah, Jair Alexander, by the way, nicknamed the Louisville secondary the tax boys because they will make you pay. Yeah. And I love the fact that you mentioned Hayden Hurst, Garnet Thor, as they call him in South Carolina. Actually tried to be a professional baseball player and got a $400,000 signing bonus.
That's nice.
Just didn't work out. Yeah. Lost the ability to find that plate, and so instead he's catching balls and doing really well. Mel, you're good. You're the best. We'll talk to you pretty soon, okay, brother?
Thanks, Mel.
Can't wait, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Let's bring in the new quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Case Keenum joins us now. Case, first of all, congratulations on the move to Denver. Did you expect this? Because obviously last season when you were playing really well for the Vikings, Mike Zimmer would say, well, he's our starter for next week. It never seemed like there was that long-term commitment. So is this a move that you were expecting that you were probably going to be somewhere else in 2018?
I had no idea. I really didn't. My agent did a great job. I let them handle a lot of that stuff. Obviously we listed, some pros and cons of a lot of different places. And I mean, Denver was at the top of the list of just about every list we made. So, when you're looking at situations, it's an incredible situation I'm stepping into. And, I'm really excited to be the Denver Broncos quarterback.
I think it's a great situation for you. As I was just saying, I'm surprised Minnesota bailed on all the quarterbacks there and went a completely different direction. I don't know the relationships there at all, but did you talk to Sam Bradford at all or Teddy Bridgewater at all? And all three are like, oh, hell, we're somewhere else now. Any kind of conversation with you three about all being in different spots now?
Not specifically that. We talked and we're all excited for each other, knowing that we all have opportunities ahead of us. I enjoyed my time with those guys. They're great dudes, man. Great players, but great people off the field. So that's what I really enjoy in this business is getting to know the people off the field, and those guys are great.
Case Keenum with us, the new Denver Broncos quarterback coming there off a stellar season in Minnesota. You said that Denver was always at the top of your list. So what made Denver the most attractive option to you as you thought about this might be a place where you might be going?
There's a lot of reasons. Obviously the organization, the history, the culture they have here, a history of winning, and not just winning a little bit, but winning the big one. The team they have in place, receivers here, Demarius, Emmanuel, great coaching staff that Coach Joseph has put together. Obviously a defense that I have no firsthand can get after the quarterback with Von Miller. And then the city itself. I mean, I heard you guys talking a little bit earlier about Denver. We love the outdoors. We love getting out and exploring stuff. So, my family here, we're really excited to be in Denver, the city, and really get to know what it's like out here.
And we know some of the great things Denver has to offer. Is it in your contract? Are you allowed to ski? Are you a skier?
I probably won't be skiing anytime soon. I do like to ski, but I'm probably going to wait till I'm done with my day job before I do that.
It's probably a very, very good idea. How was the conversation with John Elway? Here's this Hall of Fame quarterback running the show in Denver, and they bring you in and sign you. Talk about that first sit down with him and what he had to say.
It was great. Luckily, I'd already met him before, so I'd kind of already got out my little kid fan, jitters out when I got to meet him, a few years ago back when I was in college. But it's incredible. I mean, obviously to come here and to be able to play for one of your childhood, idols, a guy you've looked up to for a long time, it's a dream come true. So I'm very excited to represent. To be the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, just like a lot of the greats before me.
Yeah, and to that point, there was a picture that surfaced of you as a kid with the John Elway jersey, right? Yeah. So this is not just, I've always respected him. Like, he was your guy when you were the little dude.
Yeah, I think I was actually John Elway for Halloween like 3 years in a row. I think from, 10 to like 13. So I went through that phase, and being in Texas, for me, it was the Cowboys and the Broncos, so that's kind of funny.
So, now the question becomes: are you going to be a trick or a treat for John Elway? I mean, that's the question we have to ask, Case.
Come on, man. I'm going to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a treat as well. So you mentioned this was a place you wanted to be. Obviously, that defense is there. Von Miller has already gone out and basically campaigned to get Bradley Chubb there with the 5th overall pick, saying he's a comparison of me and Khalil Mack put together. As a quarterback, what would it mean for you if they could get a defensive guy like that and have those two guys that could rush the quarterback?
I think our defense is very talented. And I try to stay away too much from doing my draft analysis. I'm not very good at it. That's not my job. I analyze guys. I do my evaluation of guys when they get in the building, and I see how they work and how they how they operate, how do they handle adverse situations. So for me, having a good defense is incredible. If I can end every series with a kick, whether it's a punt, a field goal, extra point, and we don't turn the ball over, we got a good chance to win a lot of football games.
I'll say this for you so you don't have to. I know you're not big on the draft, but let me just say this, Trey.
Yeah.
If they took Quentin Nelson, I bet he'd feel even better.
Yeah, that would go very well. Put Quentin Nelson next to Garrett Bowles.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been an interesting time. There's also been talk maybe about a quarterback. What would you think if they drafted a quarterback fifth?
It's like I said, man. Whoever upstairs, whoever they decide to bring in, I'm excited because I know that that's who they feel is going to make this team the best team it can be. And, I've always been a fan of competition, especially on your own team. I think it makes you better. It's made me better. I've never been handed anything in my life, so I'm going to earn everything I get. I've earned everything I've gotten up to this point, and that's how I'm going to continue to operate as a starting quarterback at the Denver Broncos. So I want to earn the right to lead this team. I want to earn the right to be a team leader, and I want to earn the right to be able to say that I'm the Denver Broncos quarterback.
Well, you certainly earn your right to have that situation after what you did last offseason. Look, we've said it all along. We thought you were maybe the most underappreciated player in football last year, and we're glad you landed on your feet in Denver. We're looking forward to seeing what happens with you as the guy you went to Halloween for 10 to 30 years, John Elway, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Hey, Case, we really appreciate you being with us, and I'm sure we'll talk to you throughout the year, okay?
Thanks, Case.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
P.J. Carlesimo is joining us. He's calling the Pacers Cavs tonight on ESPN Radio. Friday night he has the Raptors Wizards on ESPN. And Saturday night he has the Warriors Spurs on ESPN Radio. In other words, P.J. is going to be doing a lot of traveling, and we're happy that he is doing that. And in between his travels, he joins us now. Let's start, P.J., with the game you're calling tonight, Pacers Cavs. It was kind of a gut punch to Cleveland after the way they finished out the season fairly strong, losing game one at home to Indiana. What do you expect to happen tonight?
I expect, I was listening to Wendy's quotes coming in. I think LeBron will not be quite as passive as he often is in the first quarter. He loves to involve his teammates. He loves to kind of work his way into the game. But unfortunately, they dug a big hole on the other day, on Sunday, and they were never able to get out of it. So I think he'll be more aggressive early. But frankly, the other guys got to make shots. I mean, Jeff Green was 0 for 7. Kevin Love had a poor shooting night. He did a great job on the boards, but so many other guys. Kyle Korver, I'm on my way out to their shoot-around in a minute. Kyle Korver played 3 minutes in the first quarter and never played after that. So they just couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. Their three-point shooting was terrible. They were They were 5 for 12 in the third quarter when they made that good run and got back in the game. The rest of the game they were 3 for 22. So yeah, LeBron's got to be aggressive, but even he can't score 70. He needs a lot of help.
Yeah, and as he said, trying to get his guys involved, and those shots just not going down. Is it more that, or is this what the Cavs are closer to being, or are we not giving enough credit to the other side of this and the Pacers' play?
I think both, Michael. I think, the Pacers are a lot better than people realize, myself included. I've only seen them on tape this year when I was getting ready to do another game. I didn't have any of their games. When you see them in person, they're more athletic. They're a little quicker. They can get Indy on defense. That 17 turnovers for Cleveland led to 20 points. Now, Oladipo was all-world. I mean, if Oladipo the other day, he'd have been a first-team All-NBA player the way he played on Sunday afternoon. But Indiana is a much better team than I think a lot of us realized. And Cleveland is fragile this year. Now, they've been fragile other years with LeBron, but I'm not convinced the new guys can step up. You got to start with the old guys. Jeff Green and Kevin Love have got to shoot the ball a lot better, and obviously Kyle Korver. But I don't know if the supporting cast is what LeBron. It's been a soap opera here every year. People forget. Remember the trade in the middle of the year? They pick up Mozgov, J.R., Shump the one year. They replace David Blatt the next year. They kind of go on a walkabout the other year and change the roster again. Kyrie gets hurt. I mean, it's been a soap opera here every year, and they've been able to find a way to get it done. This is the most fragile they've been, But LeBron, to me, is like one of those guys, Michael. You've played against guys like that. You got to put about 4 stakes in his heart before you beat him. So if they're close, I still think he'll find a way to get them through.
P.J. Carlesimo with us, of course, calling the game tonight between the Pacers and Cavs on ESPN Radio. Hey, P.J., let's talk a little bit about what the Pelicans have been able to do. Go up to Portland and win 2 games. You know, Anthony Davis said, hey, if Boogie Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, we'd be able to contend for a championship here in the West. What surprised you the most, or has it surprised you at all, how well they've played on the road these first 2 games?
It surprised me a lot. I disagree with Anthony. I think Boogie Cousins getting hurt in a strange way helped this team. I would question whether they'd be as good a team. As great stats as DeMarcus had, they've kind of fallen into some. You know, it's one of those injuries that this team is playing extremely well right now. I like them the way they are. What surprises me is that Portland's losing, not that New Orleans has won. Portland was clearly the 3rd best team in the West all year, and they played well on both ends of the floor. They got a big guy. Obviously, they got a great backcourt. They really didn't have, I don't think, any holes in their team, and I'm shocked that New Orleans has been able to go in there and win 2 games. Now, Drew Holiday's playing incredible basketball. AD does that all the time, but a lot of guys are stepping up for New Orleans. So, hats off to Alvin Gentry and the job they're doing, but I'm surprised because I really thought Portland was the clear-cut 3rd best team in the West, and I thought they would, and they still might, but I thought they'd find a way through this series for sure.
P.J. Carlesimo joining us, our ESPN NBA analyst, calling Pacers Cavs tonight on ESPN Radio. Friday night, Raptors Wizards on ESPN2. Sunday afternoon, Warriors Spurs on ESPN Radio. The Raptors up 2-0 in their game, in their series over Washington. We've heard from just about everybody, PJ. It's a different Raptors team now. They're playing a little differently. They're ready to get over that hump in the playoffs. Do you see them different than what we've seen in the last couple of years from them, where they've had that roadblock in the playoffs and normally that name was LeBron James?
Well, that's still going to be a roadblock if both of them win in the first round. It was interesting. That game that Philly won, remember about 10 days ago, that cinched 3rd place for them and put them in a much smoother path. Now, they got to get by Miami, but forcing Toronto to have to play Cleveland if they both advance in the second round is really going to be a break for whoever comes out of that other side, be it Boston, Philadelphia, whoever it is. The Raptors are a much different team. First of all, they're a better defensive team, but offensively is where they're really noticeably different when you watch them play. Dwayne Casey's committed to playing 9-10 guys. They call it the bench mob. The bench mob has played really well. It's a whole bunch of second-year players, and in addition to that, you've got C.J. Miles, who's the wily vet with that team. They trust each other. They're not as much an isolation team. I think they were in the mid-20s, 22 or 23 in assists last year. They're top 5 this year because they share the ball. So DeMar and Kyle Lowry don't have to pound the ball as much. They're not as easy to defend, and they went from hardly shooting any threes to now they shoot as many as anybody in the league. So they're dramatically different on the offensive end. And the fact that they're playing so many guys, and Case says he's not going to back off in the playoffs. That game last night, they had a huge lead. It almost got away from them. They just stayed with the group, and they found a way to get it done. I do think they're a much improved team, and I do think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference.
P.J. Carlesimo with us, NBA analyst. He'll call the Pacers Cavs tonight on ESPN Radio. Hey, before we let you go, are we all not talking enough about what Boston is capable of doing? I mean, obviously they lose Hayward at the start of the season. Kyrie Irving is out. Yet somehow Brad Stevens has this team where they are going into the postseason. Jason Tatum plays well. Terry Rozier plays well. Are we not talking enough about the job Boston has done with considering what's happened to them this season?
Without question, Trey. And the guy that I know you would have got to him eventually, the guy who's really more responsible than even Terry or Jason Tatum is Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is playing out of his mind, has been all year. It's not just since Kyrie went down. He's had a great year. The end of last year, he kind of emerged, and people were saying, well, we thought he was pretty good at Cal. We didn't think he was this good. He is this good. But the thing he's doing that's really surprising is he's stepping up and carrying them in games now since Kyrie did go down and playing without Marcus Smart, which, nobody talks about either. Yes, I do think we're all forgetting about them. I think they're going to win this series. I think whoever they meet in the next series, it's gonna be a war. People are sleeping on him. Brad Stevens has not done a good job. He's done an exceptional job. They're really accepting of their roles, and their young guys, particularly Rozier and Jason Tatum, who you talked about, and Jaylen Brown, are really playing for the C's.
Yeah, and Al Horford was money down the stretch at the free throw line. In that first
exactly
game.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've got a guy you can count on night in and night out. Al Horford does as much or as little as he needs to do from game to game.
Listen, and you're a guy we can count on. Again, Pacers-Cavs tonight on ESPN Radio. Friday night, Raptors-Wizards on ESPN2. Sunday afternoon, Warriors-Spurs on ESPN Radio. You get your miles, P.J. Carlesimo.
Thanks, P.J.
You get your miles. Thanks for being with us, my man. Click.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.